The Philadelphia Eagles beat the Miami Dolphins Sunday night 31-17. And, I was telling you guys all week leading up to this game that the Dolphins were not the team that you think they are. They put 70 points on the Denver Broncos, and what did they do the week after? They lost 48-20 to the Buffalo Bills. And the Philadelphia Eagles, people were having questions about, is this team legit? Are they the same team that they were last year? Obviously, this isn't the same Philadelphia Eagles team that we saw in 2022 because the NFL is a forever evolving sport. You're never going to get the same team twice. Every team is going to be a different version of themselves. I just think that the expectations that we bestowed upon Philadelphia were so high. It's just that when you have insanely high expectations and people hold you to high expectations, even when you're playing better than the rest of the league, people can still kind of underrate you in a sense. And I think that with this win, the Philadelphia Eagles definitely showed that they still are one of the best teams in the NFL. Like a couple of weeks ago, people made it seem like the Philadelphia Eagles were like a 2-4 football team. Like, this was only a 1-loss football team. Yeah, they lost to the New York Jets and they had an off game, but how many games are we going to see Jalen Hurts where he's off like how he was against the New York Jets? Sometimes you just have an off game, and they came out and they beat a pretty solid football team. But that's the thing with the Miami Dolphins. They're a really solid football team. I don't think they are a great football team like a lot of people are trying to make them out to be. And I get that they are dealing with some injuries, but here's my thing with injuries, right? If you're not going to talk about injuries when you're putting 70 points on the Denver Broncos, I don't want to hear about injuries when you're losing 48-20 to the Buffalo Bills and you're losing 31-17 to the Philadelphia Eagles, because this is the problem with the Miami Dolphins. In big games, they just don't play their best football. And this is just not a 2023 problem. This was a last year problem. Do you remember when they had that brutal road stretch and they lost to the 49ers, they lost to the LA Chargers, and although they beat the LA Chargers this year, the LA Chargers aren't a good football team. Anytime the Dolphins play a playoff caliber football team, they don't really have good performances. The Buffalo Bills blew them out 48-20 after they hung 70 on the Denver Broncos. And when you look at the Miami Dolphins schedules and the teams that they beat, the Giants, the Panthers, they haven't beaten a single team that has a winning, respectable record. And their schedule is only going to get a lot tougher, and you're going to have to play the Buffalo Bills again. And every team is dealing with injuries. Great teams that win Super Bowls have to be able to overcome injuries. Although Teron Armstead, it's not like he really should be dependent upon to stay healthy for a whole entire season. I mean, the dude has been known as being an injury-prone player, so therefore I don't understand why you wouldn't have a suitable backup. The Miami Dolphins offensive line has been an issue for like the last 4 to 5 years, so I don't get why we still continue to make excuses when it comes to injuries on the offensive line for the Miami Dolphins. They should have plenty of depth at that position. They've been drafting offensive linemen for the last 3-4 years prior to even Mike McDaniel getting there, man. Like, some of the guys that starting there was there when Brian Flores was there as the head coach. So I'm not really trying to hear the whole excuse thing about injuries. And then they want to complain about getting screwed by the refs, man. Like, listen, in the NFL, there's never going to be a perfectly called game. At the end of the day, if Tyreek Hill doesn't drop that wide open touchdown, that never leads to that face mask no call, because you would have had points on the board. You see, like, we got to stop trying to make excuses. Well, you're a Dolphins fan, so if you're a Dolphins fan, of course you're going to try to make those kinds of excuses, but at the end of the day, the Dolphins just didn't execute in this game. They had holding penalties, false start penalties. A lot of their penalties were just self-inflicted wounds. Meanwhile, you look at the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, they had a couple of penalties that probably should have been called on them. But I'm tired of people trying to make it seem like the NFL is trying to rig these games. The NFL is not trying to win, is not trying to rig these damn games. There's a reason why the Atlanta Falcons are under investigation for Bijan Robinson not being listed on the injury report. Like, there's too much money at stake. People bet on these games. The NFL gets money off these betting sponsorships. They're not worried about rigging these damn games. They don't need to rig these games because if you rig the games and you have predetermined outcomes, first of all, it takes away from the entertainment value because then you could just leak who's going to win. And second, do you not know how hard it is to rig an NFL game? Even if you do want to throw penalties on every play, if you're just the better team, you're just the better team. And that's what the Philadelphia Eagles were in this game. They were just the better team. Like, people want to talk about banning the tush push, which we're going to get into that later. But be honest, let me ask you this. Do you want to ban the tush push because you're concerned about these players safe and healthy and health? Or do you want to ban the tush push because the Philadelphia Eagles just run it so damn better than everybody else in the National Football League and you're tired of it? I think I'll have to go with option B because people just hate dominance. Like, I saw the Minnesota Vikings try a tush push earlier or a brotherly shove with Kirk Cousins on Monday Night Football, and it fell twice. Like, what the hell were the Minnesota Vikings thinking running the tush push with Kirk Cousins? He may be the least athletic quarterback in the NFL. So when it comes to the Miami Dolphins and them getting screwed over, like, make all the excuses you want, but at the end of the day, ask yourself, what have the Dolphins done anytime they've been in big games? They haven't really played their best football. Even when they played the New England Patriots on Sunday Night Football, they didn't really beat them all that convincingly. The Dolphins just are one of those teams that performs the best when the lights are the brightest. And another thing that kind of really irked me in this game, you can say I'm being petty for this, but I really got tired of how they were overblowing Tua starting over Jalen Hurts when he got benched in the halftime of that national championship game against Georgia years ago. Like, okay, we get it, but that seems to be a storyline that they kind of dragged out a little bit too much for me. Like, Jalen Hurts just took the Philadelphia Eagles to the Super Bowl, all right? Obviously, Jalen Hurts right now is a better quarterback than Tua, and he showed it in this game. Like, regardless of who was healthy and who wasn't healthy, Tua Tagovailoa had a bad breaking interception when he was trying to throw a slot fade to Raheem Mostert. First of all, I don't even know why Mike McDaniel would even put Raheem Mostert in the slot. I don't really think he's known for being a really great pass-catching back, one of those backs that you just put out wide and he can make things happen. And second of all, like, there was too many defenders over there for Tua to be throwing that pass over there anyway when he had a wide open check down option. Like, Miami Dolphins fans get really defensive over Tua Tagovailoa. You can never give any constructive and real criticism when it comes to Tua Tagovailoa. It's so annoying. Like, they're one of those fan bases that are the most defensive over their quarterback. Tua's a good quarterback, but I don't think it's a hot take and it's hate to say that this dude just doesn't play all that great at big games. Honestly. Like, I kind of get tired of the fact that they make it seem like this dude is just so invincible. Like, I love Tua, no hate to the brother. I want him to succeed, but we got to stop it, man. He just doesn't play all that well in big games. Jalen Hurts outplayed Tua, even with him having more turnovers. Jalen Hurts is a good enough quarterback that he can have multiple turnovers and still find you ways to win the football game. He got 2 touchdowns, 1 pick, 270 passing yards, 23 or 31. I mean, Jalen Hurts, just when the Eagles needed him to make big plays, he stepped up and he made big plays, especially in the big moments of this game. And I don't want to hear anything about him having a better team. You put Jalen Hurts on the Miami Dolphins, they are a better football team with him at quarterback than Tua. Jalen Hurts is just a better quarterback. There's a reason why Jalen Hurts got an extension before Tua Tagovailoa. Do you think Tua is going to get an extension anytime soon? Come on, like, if the Dolphins really love Tua, like how they try to make it seem, then why doesn't he already have a new extension? Because they don't trust him. First, they don't trust him to stay healthy, and two, like, he isn't really all that great in big games. Now, of course, they're going to give him an extension if he stays healthy, but he's just not a great quarterback in big games. And he could eventually end up improving and end up proving us wrong. But to this moment, I'm not viewing the Dolphins as front runners to be Super Bowl contenders. Like, I respect them as contenders. I think they're dark horse contenders, but I don't think they're up there with teams like the Ravens and the Kansas City Chiefs or even the Buffalo Bills. Like, the Buffalo Bills humbled the Miami Dolphins when they beat them 48-20. And the Buffalo Bills, you know, even though they lost to the New England Patriots, we still know how good of a team they are because they just are one of those teams that plays down the competition. Like, nobody should be tripping about the Miami Dolphins being compared to the Buffalo Bills because the Buffalo Bills and the Miami Dolphins are on 2 different levels. Like, the Buffalo Bills are not one of those teams that you should be judging based on what they do in the regular season. Like, who cares who the Buffalo Bills get upset by? It doesn't matter. Like, we know they're still going to be a playoff team. I judge Buffalo based on what they do in the postseason. You look at the Miami Dolphins, they haven't earned that. That's why they got humbled by the Buffalo Bills. Like, people were too quick to hop on the bandwagon, and now people are acting so surprised that they're losing to the Philadelphia Eagles, and they want to use injuries as an excuse. Like, no, like, people act like this is the first time this has happened to the Miami Dolphins on primetime television. People act like this is the first time, like, Tua has struggled in a big game against a really good team. Come on, man. Like, Tua is a solid quarterback. I think he's like a top 8 quarterback, but Jalen Hurts in this game definitely showed why he's the better quarterback. The Miami Dolphins, they only have 45 rushing yards. And you can say Devon A-Chain was out, this, that, and the third. But let's be honest, even if Devon A-Chain played in this game, like, yeah, he kind of would have had a couple of more bigger plays. But the Philadelphia Eagles were just the way more dominant team up front. And it doesn't matter how much speed you have on the perimeter if you can't win up front. And the Miami Dolphins just can't win up front. And even when they get healthy, if they would have played the Philadelphia Eagles again, I still think that the Philadelphia Eagles would beat them. So these are my thoughts on the Philadelphia Eagles beating the Miami Dolphins. Like, the Miami Dolphins just are not one of those teams that plays well in big games. That's a big problem that I've noticed about the Miami Dolphins. And I live down in South Florida, and I'm really interested in seeing how good this team gets when they do get fully healthy, but I don't think they're going to make it out of the AFC. I think they will make it. I think they make it to the divisional round this year, but I don't think they're as good as a team as a lot of people tried to make them out to be.